In most fantasy baseball leagues, the trade deadline is over. That means there's only one way to improve your team for the rest of the season, the waiver wire. Let me give you 9 more players that are worth picking up right now. You know there are going to be some rookies on this list. Let's start with the first one. The Angels have called up a guy that was just drafted. It's not every day that you see a player in baseball get drafted and then play in the majors the very same season, but it's happening because they're that desperate. But also it's because Nolan Schanuel has been that good. In just 16 games at the AA level, this 21-year-old was hitting .339 and more walks than strikeouts, showing the kind of hit tool and plate discipline that made him the 11th pick overall in this year's draft. Angels doing anything to make the postseason, trying all sorts of options out. Of course, they were active buyers at the trade deadline, so why not give the rookie a chance? So far, you know what? He has not disappointed, although admittedly it's a very small sample size. His first couple of games in the majors, also more walks than strikeouts, 2-1. But he scored 4 runs as well. So this guy looks like he can get on base and be a factor. Not a guy with a huge ceiling for power, but he will get on base and he could help you out in a deeper league, especially an AL only league, or maybe just looking for some average. So try Schanuel out. It's always worth grabbing a rookie toward the end of the season, see how they perform. And that brings me to yet another Reds prospect who got the call. Predicted this one several weeks ago. I talked about Noelvi Marte. We just knew this was a matter of time. Well, the time is now. He's been called up. When you look back to my video when I talked about the next big thing, who's maybe the next Elly De La Cruz, it could be right there in house. It could be Marte. This guy was a big prospect back with the Mariners. He has all the tools, some power, some speed, good glove, everything you would want. And of course, the perfect fit for a team that just keeps injecting its lineup with youth. Only 2 appearances. He's already got a hit and a stolen base. There's going to be competition for at-bats, of course, but the opportunity is there. The talent is there. Take a shot. Got a kind of similar player in St. Louis, Mason Wynn, who has been in the news, even if you're not, deep into prospects. You might have heard if you keep up with Major League Baseball news because of his first hit. Not that it was so amazing, but what happened after the hit, of course, Pete Alonso, for reasons still unexplained, just chucked his ball into the stands. That aside, look, Wynn has got a couple more hits. He's a guy who's got a pretty good hit tool, who's doing really well in the minors. He's definitely got speed on his side. The only thing I don't like is he's hitting at the bottom of the order, and he's hitting for a Cardinals team that is now just playing for next year. But this is a good thing. We know Paul DeJong not there anymore. Wynn has got a path to playing time the rest of the season to showcase that maybe he can keep that job next year. Now I got another shortstop for you on the very opposite end of the experience spectrum is Elvis Andrus, who is still with the White Sox. Now you might wonder, why would we be interested in him? If you look at his season-long stats and especially his StatCast numbers, it's ugly. But if you haven't noticed, lately he's kind of starting to do what he did last year. If you remember last year, he somehow became one of the best hitters in the majors throughout the second half after doing nothing in the first half. As a refresher, in the second half of last season, only 5 players had more stolen bases after the All-Star break than Elvis Andrus, and he hit 11 home runs in the second half. For context, he had as many home runs as guys like Yordan Alvarez, Austin Riley, and Corey Seager. And he helped in RBIs and runs and average. He was just an amazing waiver wire pickup after being completely forgotten about. Could he be doing it again? Well, so far he's hitting .321 after hitting only 2 home runs for the entire first half. He's already got 2 home runs in just 75 plate appearances in the second half. He's still in a couple bases. It could be happening again somehow. It's hard to buy into a crusty veteran like him, a guy who's had a really disappointing season again, and a guy who's on the White Sox. But numbers are numbers. He's hot. He apparently likes the later part of the season better. Whatever the reason, look at the numbers. This guy's helping you in every category over the last couple of weeks. Pick him up if he's out there. And then another guy you might have forgotten about because he wasn't even active till the last day of July. That's Brendan Rodgers in Colorado. He'd been kind of a disappointing Rockies prospect, like a lot of them are, until last season. He finally started to hit a little bit later in the season, and then looked like he was on pace to do something a little bit better because he had a good spring and then he got hurt and has not played until the last couple of weeks. Took some time to knock the rust off, but if you look just in the last week, he's picked up 7 RBIs. Again, a lot of time, the value on the waiver right now is going to be on these non-contending teams because they're giving these guys extended chances to prove whether they're a veteran or a rookie that they deserve a job going into next season. Rodgers is going to hold down an everyday position. He's a middle infielder who's got some pop. He's driving in runs. So if you need help there, he's definitely a sneaky ad. Got a couple of pitching recommendations for you too. But first, let me remind you, it's not too late to become a rival. That's right. Check out Rival Fantasy Sports. Download the app right now. You can become a rival by playing their daily games, including Fantasy Bingo, a fun way to get into the action throughout the rest of the baseball season. Use promo code EndgameMLB. Or you can go to joinrival.com/EndgameMLB. That link will be down in the description. That gets you a deposit match up to $200. Rival Fantasy Sports for MLB DFS. Now, you might not think there's a lot of fantasy value in Kansas City these days, but there's a pitcher who has caught my attention after transitioning from the bullpen to the rotation. That is Cole Ragans. This is another player that's probably floating around on waivers in a lot of leagues, especially those that aren't as deep. Because if you look at the stats, it's just not that inspiring. A 4.08 ERA, 138 whip. But dig a little deeper, you notice 2 things. First of all, since becoming a starter, he's been much better. Hasn't allowed more than 3 earned runs in a start. His ratios were kind of inflated from a couple of bad bullpen outings. But also what interests me is not just that he's striking out more than a batter per inning, but he's got a 29.8% CSW. That's called strikes and whiffs. To put that into context, if he was ranked among the qualified starters because of innings pitched, he would be 10th highest in that category. It might be hard to expect him to be dominant for the rest of the season, but man, the numbers look good under the hood so far. He's getting you strikeouts, if nothing else. Wins might be an issue because of where he pitches, but hopefully you're in a league that just uses quality starts or just doesn't use wins at all. But either way, Ragans is somebody who could help you. And a guy who's got good ratios and could get you wins because he's actually on a decent team is Christopher Sanchez. Now, he was scooped up in a lot of leagues a few weeks ago. He put together a long string of quality starts, but I kind of warned and said, yes, pick him up. He's looking good, but I kind of felt like there was some regression coming. He was due for one of those bad blow-up starts, and it happened, ironically, against Kansas City. But he had that bump of the road. He got it out of his system. And now he's back to putting together quality starts. He's got a 3.36 ERA, 1.03 whip. This guy's been good for 5 or 6 innings nearly every time he's on the bump. And the best part, a 93rd percentile walk rate. He does not get into trouble, does not get hit hard. So while the strikeout numbers aren't going to be as impressive as a guy like Ragans, he's rarely going to have one of those really bad starts. And it looks like he's freely available in most leagues, only about 30% rostered, at least on Yahoo right now. A lot of people had picked him up, dropped him for something more exciting. But at this point of the season, consistency is the name of the game. And if you're still looking for saves, well, there's a new closer in town in Detroit. That's Jason Foley. Over his last 4 appearances, he's got 3 saves. It's safe to say it looks like the job is his for right now. He doesn't have the type of strikeout rate that you expect from a 9th inning guy, but he does 2 things really well, which is why he's earned that closer job. He avoids walks and he avoids barrels. Foley has really been rock solid all year long in that setup role, and now he's a chance to get some saves. So if you're in a league where you need some more save help, now's the time to get him before everyone catches on. And then I find it hard to believe I have to mention this, but Matt Brash, who is the closer in Seattle and has been for a little while, is somehow only rostered in about a third of fantasy leagues. Since Paul Sewald was traded for reasons still unknown, because Seattle's actually in contention. They look like a playoff team, but they decided to trade their best reliever, but whatever. So Brash is the guy now. He's getting some saves, only 4 in the season, but more will be on the way. But man, even if you don't need saves, just look how good he has been. This guy has filthy stuff. It was just command was an issue as a rookie who had some erratic outings. He is definitely harnessed that. He's got a 2.95 expected ERA, which is one of the better marks in the league. And we're talking elite StatCast numbers already from a young pitcher. That's what you want to see. So look, even if I'm in a league with saves and holds or I just don't need that help and saves, I'm getting this guy just to help my strikeout numbers and my ratios. It's not too late to stay in contention for your fantasy league. Keep fighting to the end. You need to know which players to pick up and also who to ditch. Stay subscribed to this channel for help with who to cut as well.